I want to introduce to you Leticia Perez from Bakersfield.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me. Thank you, John. You have always been a gentleman to me and my family. For that, I will always be eternally grateful. It really is a sincere privilege to be with family tonight, and truly effective players and public servants in local government. One can look across this room and find influential political players behind some of the greatest achievements in recent political history in California. I think of Kern County, my own county, the first ever in the nation oil and gas EIR. We are the #2 county in the country. We are #1 in the state. And of course, we are also home to more than half of the state's renewable energy, as John so graciously pointed to. And as you are all very aware, too often the unsung heroes and heroines in our state are overlooked for the razzle-dazzle commercials of slick politicians taking credit for your painstaking work in planning departments and planning commissions all across this great state. It is often said that planning commissioners are most effective when they anticipate the needs of the elected officials who appointed them. After all, you are the front line of contact on complex land use issues with diverse and increasingly diverse community members, and often act as problem solvers and ambassadors for county council and your board of supervisors. This experience is the closest one can have, other than a staff member of an elected official, to understanding the grassroots issues that people truly care about. While the Planning Commission is theoretically limited to land use, the public brings many other thoughts, fears, and concerns to these hearings. It becomes a real-time, real-world training ground for understanding the various perspectives of the public, the limits of our own laws, and the tools elected officials use to broker compromise in a community. As an attorney, I brought an understanding of the law to my appointment to the Kern County Planning Commission. But being a planning commissioner exposed me to the real-life concerns, issues, and problems that our communities actually face on a daily basis. I learned to understand how various departments work together: planning, public works, animal control, environmental health, etc., etc. All to permit projects, as well as to resolve everything from potholes to the emergence of a pot industry. For me, the Planning Commission was really a graduate school degree in how government actually works, how it doesn't always work, and what people really care about. Elected officials often rely on staff to explain those processes and to decide who to contact. But in my experience and the Herculean efforts of a number of mentors like John Elliott and my ingenious planning director, Lorelei Oviatt, I have learned to craft and cooperate in the crafting of post-partisan solutions, moved projects forward, and discovered opportunities in a way that simply being a lawyer could never have provided. How many people in your communities have any sense of the endless volumes each of you have read over the course of your service? 20 years for some of us. How many people in your communities know the extent to which many of you have endured medieval-style political fights to simply do what creates a flourishing community, or what you hope to do? It is my opinion that planning commissioners are on the front line of grassroots politics. I sincerely believe that. As our national discourse becomes less productive and tense in words and actions, polarizing our nation into viciously oppositional ideological camps, it is the lesser-known warrior city lawn planning commissions across the state that hold the line against the toxicity of unhinged political retaliations against anything smelling of another party registration. As we sit here and smile tonight, there exist observers who would say that we can find in this same room some of those responsible for the greatest causes of failure in California public policy decision-making. Who is a question, unfortunately, too often answered from political locations. For if we talk about any particular project, lack of development, or a whole host of issues taken up by planning commissioners and supervisors in the last several years, you can move from table to table here tonight and find interpreters who will place the hero of one camp into the doghouse of another. Yet, here we are. In spite of our differences, we are still at the table together. And for this, I thank you and admire deeply all of your commitments to civility and diplomacy in this organization that I love so dearly. California is a fascinating political experiment and has always existed in this peculiar and complicated location. An increasingly liberal state legislature and still local government that finds itself in direct opposition often, passionate, authentic opposition. There has always been a tense relationship between political power brokers, industry leaders, and county department heads of various degrees of mastery in their areas. Political factions have been the great thorn in our state's side. In fact, there hasn't been a political cycle that I know of where one political party or another has not waved the bloody flag at each other and attempted to polarize an entire election cycle around some perceived wrongdoing by one party or another. Understandably, this is an easier political scenario to deal with when one is a planning commissioner or a local government official in a relatively homogeneous political situation. This, of course, has not been the case for me. I cut my political teeth in very red and very proud Kern County. As a Latina Democrat born to Christian ministers and living in Kevin McCarthy's district. He is my congressman. Add to this, I married a vastly more conservative husband who spent a great deal of time as a shadow warrior all around the world. And you will understand why I have prioritized diplomacy in my personal and political life. What this has meant for me is that I have not had the luxury of making a Democratic vote coming home to a politically homogenous family, where my public policy decisions are rubber stamped by a politically like-minded spouse. Not even close. And this reality has been good for me, and it has been good for the county of Kern, and it has been good for the statewide organization of supervisors that I represent tonight as their president. This kind of tense relationship in the last decade has caused an incredible transformation of my own understanding of how certain public policy decisions are understood and evaluated by those who do not think like I do. In this regard, my husband has been my political foil for as long as I have known him. Together, we have evolved politically to find common ground where we can mutually build together across party lines. We call this the Rational Purple Center. And we preach it whenever we engage in conversations with persons involved in government. This is, of course, this interaction within my own home, it is because of this interaction in my own home that I have been inspired to learn to communicate more productively with those who do not share my political views. I have not only had to rewire the way I listen and understand what is being communicated to me, by those from a different political world than myself. I have learned to understand that those from different worldviews have the most incredible insight and add immensely to the discourse surrounding the public policy decisions I have voted for and have been involved in for the last decade. This local evolution of the way I understand what I am doing as a supervisor has led me to communicate not as a liberal or a moderate or as a conservative, but as a supervisor who is attempting to find balance between competing interests. Is it easy? Of course not. Our political world has been polarized like no other time before, and it is because of this polarization that our counties need more than ever persons with an uncommon political wisdom, a commitment to good faith deliberation regarding public policy, and the retention of our most gifted public servants if we are to be an effective organization and state. Democracy is fragile, ladies and gentlemen. It always has been. And it is one of the benefits of being married to a political philosopher concerned with the history of democracy. Such a relationship has meant that I have had the opportunity to engage in incredible conversations with the Academy concerning the fragility of American democracy. And what I have learned from nearly 10 years of these conversations is that what we are seeing today is not new. Democracy has had another moment outside of our own American history in which it was flourishing, and then as political factions turned into political intrigue and polarization, democracy failed and was replaced by nearly 2,000 years of kingships and oligarchies. Democracy vanished from the face of the earth. Early Athenian democracy was fragile because it was radical. The idea that we should find balance between competing interests by empowering those interests with the same opportunities for civil and political discourse and even participation in the political process is perhaps the most radical political idea to ever emerge in human history. Think about this. The idea that we should find a way between competing interests rather than simply doing what one interest demands because it is more powerful had never been done before. It lasted about 200 years. And then infighting, war, economic downturn resulted in the end of one of the greatest civilizations in world history, Athens. I have increasingly been occupied by this history when thinking about local government. We are a body made up of radically different perspectives, yet we're here together, attempting to work together, knowing that we are stronger together than when we are divided into political factions. We are smarter together, and we bring our collective knowledge to the bargaining table and together hammer out policies that balance important and critical competing interests. Embracing this perspective requires the greatest amount of courage, for it exits the struggle for power among parties and embraces the core responsibility of American democracy. People and their lives every day. I place the greatest value on the encyclopedic knowledge of our county staff and real experts like our very own Kern Taxpayers Association head. Any day over some pontificating social media post by anyone. Is this harsh? I think not. Real people are affected by the way we make decisions. We have an obligation to keep the faces of the community in mind during any discussion that influences the capacity of our populations to thrive. Our job is to seek a path that balances these interests and not on calculating what decisions keep us elected in office. What I am touching on today is not partisan, it isn't Democratic or Republican. It is deeply, deeply American. And it is here that I would like to express what has become most important to me in my professional, personal, and political career. As George Washington stated in his farewell address, the alternate domination of one political faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetuated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. My time in the Kern County Planning Commission will always remain for me the origin of my current post-partisan commitment to civil discourse, rooted in reason and love for our American institutions. It could be no other way for me. I'm an attorney by training. I love the law. I love these institutions of ours. Perhaps more important to me is that I am the daughter, granddaughter, sister, cousin, and wife of Kern County American warriors who have been wounded on foreign soil in defense not just of American ideals, but also of the local moral soil that has nourished our local warriors. They are constitutional centers in little towns throughout Kern County and your counties and this great state and country. Arvin, Lamont, Delano, Shafter, McFarland, and Bakersfield are filled with the wounded warriors coming home to an American war zone and planning and board sessions across the state of California and this country. Kern County is no exception. I have seen it in my own husband's face and in the voices of combat veterans in Kern County that are demanding an answer for why partisanship is prioritized over the expert opinion of our brilliant county staff. You are on the front lines against political spin, against factionalism. I urge you to stand your ground and hold your position, remembering always your oath to this Constitution of this great country and this great state. As I said earlier, I stand with Washington on factionalism. The alternate domination of one political faction over another is itself a frightful despotism. In closing, I would like to make a small admission. This preacher's kid, former public defender, reformer type, could have never imagined that my most important cohort and partner would be the head of the local taxpayers association. Could have never imagined such a thing. And I am proud to boast that I have allies from every imaginable political tribe. Trumpsters, Bernieites, Obamaites, Reaganites, just to name a few. I have had it out with major industry players, private citizens, political opportunists, and with all of them who hate them. I've had disputes with Democrats, Republicans, Green Party members, independents, and my position stays the same. My open door policy remains intact. As citizens of this great state and of our local communities, I'll be the first to defend your right to be at the table of public policy making, so long as we understand that nothing is more valuable in the planning of our communities than civility, reason, and honesty. If we can agree here, we can agree to make a space for each other as leaders in local government. We can set the model for civil and productive discourse that seeds flourishing community for all of our communities, next generations. We will not always agree with each other, we will not always get exactly what we want, but collectively we can find a middle path that creates the flourishing communities we so desperately desire for our children, our grandchildren, and the many generations who will succeed us. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you for what the Planning Commissioners Organization has done to teach me and invest into me a spirit of civility and true American democracy. Thank you, and may God continue to bless your work.